And I think we are live now. So, hey friends,
Yeah.
this is me, Vishwas Nayan. I'm the host of this podcast, which covers about what debugging is all about. To me, I have been a person who has wandered in different industries. Like, I took DevRel for a while. I took community advocacy for a while. Then I am back to engineering. To me, even today, when I face any new problem statements, I still fear. Why I fear? It's because not the fear of losing out or me having the fear of missing out. Of course, engineering is a vast world. DevRel is a vast world. There's a lot of things that goes on. But even I've seen people where they're working on the system for a very long time, but still there is a sort of a human fatigue that comes up into the picture, and it makes us feel like what we are debugging at scale, but at the end of the day, let's not break anything. There is always a fear like, if it's working, let's not touch it. Let's not debug anything there. So there's a lot of things that goes behind. So I'm with Amit, who is heavily inspired by Shai Almog's book, not just because he was one of those fan of Kubernetes world or is fan of the DevOps world, but he has been working on some good technologies which will obviously give you a lot of insights about how to debug right. So I think Amit has a lot of insights to share, a lot of things to not just share, but also show you as a kind of a demo, which will also give you that insight about, hey man, you know what? This is where we are starting our debugging journey. There's nothing to panic. It's just mindset. So it's a session for me as a student to learn. It's a session for you as a student to learn. I hope you both enjoy. I hope we both enjoy it. And thank you so much, Amit, for being on the show. Means a lot.
Yep. Thanks, Vishwas, for hosting and making this possible on a Sunday morning. Yeah, as you said, it's a lot about the mindset. And yeah, definitely shout out to Shai Almog for writing the beautiful book, Practical Debugging at Scale. Obviously, it's a vast book. I will try to cover some of the aspects which I have seen in uh, production, like how you can go ahead and like prior to debugging, how can you make your like tests more robust and have get a know-how of the unknown bugs. Basically, there are bugs that you know of and the bugs that you don't know of. So how can you uncover more unknown bugs? And let's like dive into it. I won't be going into live demos. I'll just point out to the projects and try to talk about them. And yeah, if there are any questions, we'll definitely circle through them. So let's
Sure,
start
then.
with the first aspect, which is how can you go ahead and find out like obviously debugging means you have to solve the issue. You need to find the root cause of the bug and you need to find it in a efficient manner. So what if you can go ahead and automate the process of finding bugs first of all, which is, I won't say an issue has occurred yet. You have completed development and you want to somehow go ahead and know what are the bugs that I'm not aware of, because obviously I may not be able to uncover all of the scenarios during my engineering testing. So how can I go ahead and find that out? So let me just go ahead and share a beautiful open source project that I had come
Sure.
across in the past. So I'll just go ahead and share my screen.
Got it. I think this is a question about how do you approach the fundamental pillars of debugging, right?
Yep.
There's a lot that goes behind. So I think you just have to just increase the screen resolution so that it just looks good.
Sure.
Command.
Should I zoom in
Yeah,
or yeah?
this is better. This is better. Perfect.
Yeah, this is yeah legible. Okay, so this is one of the repositories, open source repositories from Microsoft. It's Wrestler Fuzzer. So you have an API and you have tested it to the best of your knowledge, but now you don't want to uncover. You want to uncover as less surprises as possible in production. So this can help with that. So what this does is it does a fuzzy testing and it basically generates tests and tries to break your API with respect to security as well as reliability issues. So and it's very easy to like feed data to this because it just takes your spec, your open API specification file, this Swagger documentation or any type of like documentation that you've written to explain what the API does, how does it consume the input, and what is the expected output. So through that, it learns and tries to produce a grammar, which is its own Wrestler grammar, and then it has its own engine, which goes ahead and tries to generate and break your generate the tests and break your API. And finally, you get all the exported tests, which you can where you can go ahead and check what has it uncovered, and is it any actionable issue or not. So yeah, this is I would say a definite tryout in the dev stage, so that you can reduce your debugging headaches later on for something which you can uncover through automation. So this is definitely a recommended project that folks can try out. And now coming to the point of how to make debugging easy. So one of the aspects that I definitely believe in is there should be distributed tracing enabled all across, especially when we are dealing with large scale deployments or large scale services which are present in a Kubernetes cluster, or you have, say, millions of requests coming in throughout the day. So how do you go ahead and find out what happened when it took place, and what are the metrics, logs, everything around it? So if there's a proper correlation all across, that helps. And adaptability is always a challenge over there. So sticking to the latest standards and ensuring that you have your code instrumented without going into a lot of like adoption challenges. There are many resources that are available out there, but something that I came across recently and I would love to share over here, which makes this aspect much more easier, is this project called as Odigos. So Odigos is again another open source project which allows you to have language agnostic auto instrumentation. So they've recently uploaded this demo video. Let me go ahead and like quickly show you what this does. So basically, I'll just run through some aspects of the demo. So you can see there's a Kubernetes cluster which has been created over here, which has like a namespace with multiple services, and these are services which are written in different languages. Like you have Golang based services, you have Node.js services, you have Java services, you have front end services, you have you have even Redis card hosted over here. So there's a lot of things going on, and you basically want your system to be end to end distributed tracing uh, observability equipped. So how do you go ahead and do that? So they've installed Jaeger over here for the demo, but it's quite flexible. So you can just install Odigos first. It has its own client for installing it into your namespace. Once you've installed it, the deployment is successful. It has its own UI. Spin up the UI, and it'll automatically go ahead and figure out what are the services which are running in the services. Lists everything down over here. Once you have those services, you just have to select the ones which you want to auto instrument. And this is using eBPF under the hood, so that it can capture all the data that it needs for instrumentation automatically without a single line of code change. And this is where the fun part comes in. You have a lot of APM backends which it can link to. So it's not just limited to Jaeger as shown in this demo. You can go ahead and select anything, be it Grafana Loki, or if you have Datadog or New Relic, or anything that you're running in house already. So just plug it into that, and once you've done that, let's you just have to provide the configuration. In this case, they provided the configuration for Jaeger, and after this done, you can see they've loaded up Jaeger, and here on trying to search for the front end app, they are able to see the entire span and the distributed trace across all the different applications of the services that were running in the cluster. So yeah, definitely a fun project to play around with and go ahead and get the most out of the power of eBPF and auto instrumentation without even changing a single line of code. So this makes your adoption problem, like it takes it out of the picture, and you can go ahead and gain lots of insights if you don't have distributed tracing set up already, and you're having the issue of making code changes everywhere to get that in place. So yeah, these are a few of the debugging, like useful apps or open source offerings that I've come across in the recent past. And now I would also like to talk about how do you go ahead and debug at scale live. Like I came across this article, which was a really good article on Sidekick some months ago, and I was really fascinated by this because the idea over here was how can you go ahead and debug your backend like your front end. Like we all know that Chrome DevTools is a very powerful offering, and that allows us to play around a lot with everything that's available in the browser, like right from checking all the network requests that are going in, figuring out the latency metrics. So lots of stuff over there. But with respect to backend, it's still like you don't have a all-in-one toolbox like that. So this idea basically led to the creation of Sidekick. So Sidekick is again another open source project. It's by Thandra APM Corporation. So they you can find the code base in GitHub. What they allow you to do is they give you live remote debuggers. So if anyone has heard of, say, uh, there are multiple offerings in the market, like paid offerings like Lightrun, but this is allowing you to add trace points and log points without actually breaking anything. It's a non-breaking flow. So, for example, this is the GIF which explains what Sidekick is. Yes, it's not loading up over here, but so what this does is you can have, let me zoom into this. Maybe that is going to help us see this. Yeah. So you have your application which is running live. You install the Sidekick offering, and it allows you to add conditions and sample rates, which will basically collect the amount of configured requests and let you put the conditions, like apply those conditions on top of them, and then look at live logs or live traces right from your production environment. So you can actually debug in production using this. So basically, it's something has gone wrong, and you find out that, oh, I don't have any logs or traces that I can get out of this particular block of code or this particular line or this particular function that I'm interested in. So if this Sidekick setup is done, you can just simply select that from your IDE and connect to the Sidekick server and instruct it to ask its agent to collect all the samples for you and provide it on the go. Like you have a live feedback loop which you create, and you can figure out the issue much more quicker and maybe gain some more insights into why that is taking place and plan out your fix. You don't have to go ahead and do deployments to get just to get the feedback. So that is another way to reduce time to figuring out issues. So live debuggers are a thing which definitely I would recommend to try them out, and if feasible, also have it installed in production so that it makes like getting the root cause of issues much more easier. So it's just like your ID. Whenever you do the local debugging stuff, you're doing that in production, and you get all the insights live from production without breaking anything, and just adds around microseconds or milliseconds worth of latency to a few set of sample requests. That's all. That's the only price that needs to be paid for this. But definitely, the insights that it provides is very valuable. So yeah, with this part, I would again then like to go into how can you get more insights without even going to prod. Let's say you want this type of live debugging setup in your local. How can you get a faster feedback loop? Since we are in this talking about the feedback loop topic, and especially with respect to Kubernetes, one of my favorite projects is MirrorD. So again, it's a very famous project, and it allows you to connect your local process directly to your remote. It can be staging, it can be production, any process. So it basically reduces your time to test and gives you the entire feedback instantly. Basically, you don't have to go ahead and deploy or go through the CI process anymore if this is in place. Well, let me just go to the diagram to explain this a bit. It runs a process. That process basically is a mirror, and that mirror replicates your incoming traffic and sends it to your local process. So just within your ID, without breaking anything in production, you can get the production traffic routed to your local like testing setup, and just add breakpoints or log points and find out what is going on and collect the information and then take action as per the findings. So this is something which is very useful. It allows you to connect to any type of service, and again, it's just an installation in your namespace. You go ahead and install Miradi, and there, it runs a pod over there. There is a local process, and both of these basically fuse together to offer type of seamless replication of the requests that are coming in from your target environment, be it staging, be it production, be it any of your clusters which you're interested to debug live with your changes. These changes can be, they may not have even been released yet. So you want to get the feedback, you can get it immediately with this in place. So, yep, these were few of the like open source tools and like offerings which I've found to be quite useful that help with say testing in the testing phase before the deployment is done. Then also while writing your code, if you want to go ahead and check what are the possible scenarios, what are the data points that can come in, you can simply route all production traffic to your local code base without breaking anything. That is also possible. And again, if something has gone wrong in production, if you want to go in and find out at a very deep level what is going on and why things are breaking, you can do the live debugging as well. So multiple options possible. Yeah, there's whatever is the use case or the scenario that suits the situation. You can go ahead and employ these tools to that task. So, yep. Back to you, Vishwas, for if there are any questions, we can take them and discuss further.
Sure. I think there has always been that one question that I had since I came to DevOps back, and you know, debugging is good, but how not to break things? Because a lot of times when we start the journey of debugging, like I start the journey of okay, I don't know the service. It recently happened. There was an CDN approach that I had to give for some of the assets that we had, or also even for some of the POCs that we were going through, and I was like shocked. There is a lot of configurations that has to be done behind in order to run your CDNs or anything, right? So there's a huge requirement that goes behind, right? There needs to be a learning that we need to do. There needs to be some sort of an unlearning that we need to do in order to approach it. So how not to break things and debug the right way? Because over a course of time you start learning one thing, but there is a chance that you are going to mess up with some other thing. So how to debug without breaking things in production? So that's my question right now.
Yeah, that's a very good question. So, because that's the major fear that all developers or all builders
All
will
the
have that.
freshers have all the
Yeah,
freshers have
everyone has that. What I definitely don't want to break anything in production because that will create a lot of turmoil for the entire team. So, what we can ensure, a few of the best practices that we can ensure would be to try to not touch production with any like think of the consequences first and list them down on what is going to happen. So it's again, if we are making any type of like we want to do any type of investigative analysis or if we want to uh, dive deep while debugging, so we have to figure out how can we do that without actually going ahead and disrupting our production setup. So that there are many ways to approach that, but the best option that I can think of is you go ahead and do not like basically have a replication as much as possible of whatever you're trying to test in a isolated non-production specific environment. It can be local, it can be your staging wherever you can use such tools which we discussed to easily replicate the flow which is breaking and then try to tinker around over there because and most times when we are in a time crunch situation when the issue is happening and we want to try out uh, few say fixes or suggest few changes. Doing that in production is a very bad idea without having it tested out somewhere else first. So that is a learning which everyone like gets over time. So never apply anything in production directly. So So try to have at least one or two levels, minimum of two levels of testing in, say, local and staging environments first. And this can be done by like going ahead and figuring out what is the setup that's required and automating that to spin up like ephemeral environment, which allows you to play around. And once you're very sure that you have tested and you have verified the like fixes, and you're not breaking anything in that ephemeral environment. Even if you break something over there, it's fine. It's like no one is going to complain. Your end users or your consumers won't be affected. So you go ahead and make those fixes, and then finally, once you've validated everything, that's when you go ahead and roll everything out to production. And yeah, ensuring that you have the depth of live debugging capabilities available. Those are the like few like tips and tricks where you can go ahead and employ these type of tools where the data, like you can replicate what is coming in from production and send it to your ephemeral environment and then validate the test on that, or just get a sample over there. Like don't need to go ahead and send all of your production traffic if you are a very busy application or service which you are trying to go ahead and debug. So definitely don't need to replicate everything. Just figure out a specific portion or sample of what is breaking, and then try to dive deep into that in a like disposable setup. So yeah, that's one of the important things. And the other thing is we have to be remain calm while debugging in production, because that's another major lesson. We need to know that like we should not let emotions get the best of us. So that's something which happens to all of us while things go wrong in production. So that's where remaining calm and ensuring that the best practices of debugging are followed, and we ensure that we don't make the situation like from whatever the situation is, we don't worsen it more than that. So we need to keep that in mind as well. So that's one of the yeah, key learnings which I've seen over the like past few years.
Sure. I think there are so many services today, right? CDN
Yeah,
is one part of it where there is Akamai who is ruling the CDN market. That means even the best in the industry fear Akamai CDNs because they're like, you know what, we are helping people deliver the right content delivery
correct.
network, and
Content delivery.
there's a lot that goes behind one service. That means the moment I think Lambda has their own nitty gritties that I have to learn all these things. But as a young guy, I've understood one thing: you can't learn everything on the go, or else you can't even imagine how much you can learn in the future. But you can't also say that what I'll stop learning and I'll only be in one system and I'll only take care of one service. That's actually something that is not appreciable and not accepted in the industry today. So there's a lot of things that goes behind. So let's talk about how do we need to start learning, and also the other question is like how to approach right, because
Yeah,
the biggest advice that I got from my boss was, what, put 10,000 hours. It's okay. It's okay. You're too young. I came from a world where talking ruled, but to me, I feel that what, as an engineer, you have to grow as an engineer. You have actually grown as an evangelist. That's absolutely good, but you should grow as an engineer, and it requires 10,000 hours, and it requires 10,000 hours dedicated. So there's a lot of difference that goes behind the amount of learning that we need to do, and the deliverables are like crazy in the every organization. So how to balance out the learning as well as the deliverables from an engineer, and how to approach things right, because we are not approaching right, because I fear a lot when it comes to
yeah.
new services. So how to approach right?
So definitely, it's a very good point, and like I would say there are multiple, like there's obviously plethora of things to be learned, and 10,000 hours to become an expert is also like one of the things which obviously if you have to put, you need to put in the time to get that expertise, and that will obviously happen. The time is limited with all of us, so we need to ensure that deliverables are also taken care of, and we also need to stay on top of upskilling. But while there is so much to learn, obviously the core fundamentals are always limited. They don't expand at the pace at which the problem of plenty to learn or the new like new releases or new tools or new things that are coming up. Obviously, one will never be able to equip themselves with the knowledge of everything. So that's what we need to leverage. What like a mix of how how can we go ahead and use need based as well as learning to like satiate the hunger for knowledge. So I would say we need to balance it out. We have to definitely ensure that go ahead and always have say uh, 80 to 90% of your priority on the deliverable first, so that once you have gained the expertise of doing that, you can then start allocating more time towards learning newer approaches or newer stuff. So that basically it's a it's finding the right balance, and striking the right balance will be with gaining expertise on one thing first and then moving to the other. So and obviously you have to pick up a few things together, but don't go ahead and try to dive deep into a lot of things. That way you will get overwhelmed and you will kind of end up leaving everything altogether. So that is also an issue which arises with the problem of plenty. So it's a simple approach could be like try to focus on the task at hand and the deliverable first and learn everything that is required to master it. And then when you are getting better at the speed of execution over there, whatever time you end up saving, just invest that into learning something that interests you further. So that way you can balance both the delivery of what your organization or your team expects, and also going ahead and fulfilling your desire for learning and advancing, like upskilling yourself.
I think that's great. Thank you so much, Amit, for taking your time off on a Sunday morning. And, I think the Sidekick is a tool that I really love. You know, it's
Yep.
basically a tool that can give you insights about not just intelligence that is required, but also for the amount of insights that you need to gather over a course of time. That means as an engineer, we forget to master some of these skills. Like, it's absolutely fine. It's absolutely fine because we are humans. We don't have a structurized thinking. Everybody has a different way of thinking. It comes with the experience. I think Sidekick is very good. I think I'm gonna write some articles on these tools that you have shown. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for that.
So,
It made
so
me
do you have any
getting.
fun? Because when it comes to debugging at scale, so one of they make for very good stories to be shared later on, like in case there were issues and there were any problems. So do you have any fun incidents that you would like to
I
like
think
share with us?
I think yeah. When I was part of a company, it was the first Kedro pipeline deployment that I did. In that Kedro pipeline, we thought everything was working fine for a week. Then later we realized that what, it doesn't scale. And now when they are training good, everything is happening good. But later on, they told me the pipelines are showing that working, but I'm not seeing the deployment in the production. Like, I'm like, what really happened? The thing is, we had forgotten to say them that what, deployment has a different pipeline, you have to trigger that. So there was one guy who used to take care of it, the other guy went out because he was on leave. And now that thing was, it was like, why is it not scaling for the deployment? I'm like, there is a different pipeline for deployment, right? You need to go out there and trigger that. It's a manual process that we put in. Even in the
Yeah.
DevOps world, there is a lot of still manual things that has to go on, because production, man, you can't just go out there and just ruin everything in a day. So I think that was one incident which I felt like, what, you should communicate right to the people.
Yes.
If it doesn't
Yeah,
scale, that
communication
doesn't mean
is
that.
often key in such pressure situations. So that's
Yeah,
something which
it's
we tend to
like,
overlook in most cases.
yeah, it's like, it's absolutely fine. If I don't know technology, I don't know technology. It's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
But after a year or so, you can't say that same thing. It's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
In the first quarter, you don't know anything, but you're still fiddling around in different services. But next 6 months, it's the time for you to ramp up for getting ready to handle chaos. I think I think I learned a lot about how to become a human being. I think I always say that become a human being first, then become an engineer. It's rather reverse today. You want the best package in the
Yes, you
world,
try
then you
to.
become the,
Mm.
then gradually you feel like, you know what, I'm not growing here, and then all these
Yeah.
things start up. So I think there has been fair amount of learning that I had, when I was in places, you know I think it's not debugging in production, it's actually communicating for the people who work in
Communicating
that production.
effectively. Yeah.
So I think that's what
Yeah.
I learned
Because
about it. I think
yeah.
it's good. It's good to learn from
Yeah.
what you experience from people.
The human angle of the bug is much more devastating than the actual software bug. So if
Software bugs,
yeah,
yeah.
you miss out on communication, then it's definitely going to have bad repercussions.
Bad repercussions. Yes, yes. I think Amit, thank you so much for being on the show. I think it's a Sunday evening. There are people who are really wanting to ask you a lot of questions. They might be shy. You if you want to ask any questions, don't worry about it. Do DM Amit. His DMs are open on LinkedIn. You can just connect with him. We cannot just stop here. We still have a chance to do part two as well. So part three, part
Yeah.
four.
So
So we'll be coming out with a lot of other podcasts as well. So don't worry about
we
that.
would love to see what type of questions, not necessarily on the live podcast, but even after you've viewed it, if you have any questions and if you want any themes to be discussed further, because we did a like more of a breadth first approach over here. If you want us to go in depth into some of the things, and I definitely recommend reading Practical Debugging at Scale, the book. It's definitely
From
useful.
Shine Mob,
And
yeah.
there's a lot of things that have been covered over there. It's written by a veteran, and you will learn a lot. So definitely check out the book. And yeah, I try to share some of the tips and tricks today. But if there's more interest in some specifics or more details around anything around this topic, so feel free to add that, and we might have part two to continue and explore more on that. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Amit. So this is Vishwas
Thanks,
Nair signing
Vishwas,
off
for
from this
hosting. Yeah.
show. Thank you so much, my friends.